Looking forward to digging into the best places to invest today.
This is the big reveal for us of our 2023 Best Places to Invest report.
And what I find super interesting is actually played out with the trends on where we've seen the most new investment come in over the past 2 years.
So lots of different factors, folks, obviously play into your own individual strategy. It's never a one size fits all. Hello, favorite person, Jamie Lane. It's me, Mariah. Hi.
Looking forward to digging into the best places to invest today.
The what? Not the okay places to invest, not the just good enough places to invest. This is the best places to invest. Is that what I'm hearing correctly from you?
They're not the places that I'm going to invest, but theoretically, yes, they're the best places to invest.
OMG. That is a record scratching moment. I love this. We're not even 30 seconds into this podcast, and you've already pulled the record scratch. Editor, add a record scratch. I'm just trying to make this meta. We know the editor's not going to add a record scratch sound effect, but wouldn't it be cool? Maybe someday when we get big enough, they'll do that kind of thing for us. Okay. Let's unpack. We have so much to unpack for our audience, I think, right off the jump. So the first thing is, yes, folks, drum roll moment. Editor, add in drum roll. This is the big reveal for us of our 2023 Best Places to Invest report. Highly anticipated, dare I say, already garnering some controversy, which we should talk about. We should talk about the controversy that it's already getting, the feedback. And now you're just adding on top of it, which I love by saying these are not where you're going to invest. Let's just start with why there's been controversy, Jamie Lane. I'm seeing some names of places on this report, and I am like, well, that isn't a mainstream location. Like Fairbanks, Alaska, I believe is number one. Not to steal your thunder, Sheboygan somewhere. So tell me, how has this happened? Where's all the mainstream places to invest?
Yeah, now that you've given away our reveal, let's dive in.
So typical of me.
It's really been the past 2 years. The main markets that have sort of come up on our list are not sort of the most popular destinations. They're not some of the locations that I'm going on vacation with my family or have been to in the past forever, but they are they are some great maybe new and upcoming and smaller cities throughout the country. It plays off of a broad trend that we've seen and really play out throughout the pandemic of small town sort of rural destinations garnering outsized increases in demand. And really, I think the factor playing into a lot of the markets that have sort of showed up on the best places to invest this year is what's been going on in investability and specifically around home values. Because the sort of factors driving home values have really pushed up the prices in markets that have been some of the most popular short-term rentals destinations. It was almost like short-term rental demand was able to predict future impact increases in home values. But many, if not most, of the traditional sort of investment markets, home values are very frothy, have not yet really begun to go down. Investor demand has been strong. And so that sort of pushed the investability of those markets down and sort of brought some others to the top. And what I find super interesting is actually played out with the trends on where we've seen the most new investment come in over the past 2 years. And
Right, right.
biggest increases in supply is not happening in sort of the traditional mountain or coastal or large urban markets. It's happening in mid-sized cities. It's happening in small city, rural areas, and that's and where investors are actually finding the best deals and deploying their money.
I love that, and I think that is certainly representative. And again, I promise I won't reveal anything else to people, but I think that is very representative of the list that we've compiled. What we typically do for folks is we get to a list of 25. We consolidate it down to 25 for the U.S., for instance, and I think that's really really interesting to just see, like, yeah, maybe. And I think, like, dare I say that some of these places are just tapped, right? Like the potential there for new investment. It's really hard to afford a place to buy, right? As you mentioned. And then also, depending on what's happening with demand and more importantly with supply, you just might not be able to make that sort of revenue margin that you were looking for in order to justify dropping $1 million on a big mountain lake destination home. That's what I'm hearing you
Yeah,
say, Jane Lane.
and it sort of plays into the point I made at the beginning that, and this maybe isn't my best places to invest list, and it's not going to be, and this list is not going to be anyone else's best places to invest list. But what we try to do is create a framework for investors to build out their own list, and it starts with what are the regions you're interested in investing in? Do you want to be within 2 or 3 hour distance of your home location? Do you want to focus on mountain or coastal markets, sort of uh, appealing to a traditional vacationer guest? Do you want to go after urban markets and maybe push into midterm or longer term stays? Do you want to go after more unique homes and rural destinations that are attracting a whole new sort of round of guests, sort of finding the short term rental industry? What is your price point? And price
Right,
point is such a big factor. How much do you have to invest? Can you get financing for that loan? What type of financing can you get?
right,
And how much ultimately can you invest in the sector? Do you want one home? Do you want five? Do you want 10? Do you want 50? Do you want those all in the same market? Because I could tell you a lot of these sort of smaller towns, like if you're going into Ellsworth, Maine, and with the uh, idea that you want to add 50 homes in there, uh, that's
right.
going to be a lot of new units added into one market where you yourself could potentially oversaturate that. So uh, there's and one of my main themes in creating this is we want to create sort of a thought framework for our partners, our customers, to help them sort of think through when they're going after creating their list, what should they be thinking through when going on that journey.
I think that that's so, so important. So yes, provocative statement, obviously to hook our listeners into this podcast, but we're making it worth your time, listeners. I know we are. Yeah, you're not necessarily, this isn't part of your particular investment strategy. Each one of those investment theses is very unique to the person, right? And it has so much to do with, again, affordability, which I think we should unpack a little bit because the housing market has changed so much, right? And also with what you're looking for ultimately, right? Like, are you looking to buy several properties? Are you looking to just get one or two? Is this sort of a place where you would like it to be a short-term rental, but also potentially have the opportunity to be a mid-term rental or another thing? Are you looking for something that's a little bit more diverse? Are you looking for something that's really unique and probably only a short-term rental? So lots of different factors, folks, obviously play into your own individual strategy. It's never a one size fits all. But directionally, what our list is doing for folks is helping them understand what I would say, hallmarks and traits of some really good investment locations are for this year. Does that sound right?
Yeah. So let's maybe dive into the metrics. And what's our
Yes.
methodology?
Yes, that's where thank you for the segue. Because our methodology, let's talk about what's different about our methodology too. But yes, I think you've got 4 prime pillars here for your
Yeah.
methodology, Jamie. Let's talk about it. Let's walk the folks through.
Yeah. So digging into the methodology, we start with our 3 main metrics, and I'll talk about the fourth. So starting with demand. So we're looking at occupancy in a market. So what percent of the nights available in that market are actually getting booked, and then playing into that too is this sort of year-over-year change on a trailing 12-month basis and number of listings getting booked. So are you are you getting high occupancies in that market? And are the number of listings actually getting booked going up on a year-over-year basis? So that's our
Love that.
demand pillar. On
Love
the
that.
revenue pillar, it's all around sort of momentum on RevPAR growth. So we're
Okay.
looking at the total revenues earned over the past year for a host in this market. Uh, we're looking at the entire year over the prior year. And then we're looking at what is that year over year change in revenue per available listing for listings that have been available over that 2 year period. So our hosts, our investors actually earning more money in this market in 2022 than they were earning in 2021.
Love
And
that.
this actually weeds out a whole lot of markets that are sort of on that negative trajectory
Yeah.
where maybe they're a bit oversaturated in terms of new investment and where we're seeing RevPARs coming down. Uh, the
Love that.
third pillar and the one that is sort of the highest weighted in terms of our scoring is investability. And there's 2 main pieces of this one. There's the revenue. So how much revenue is an average full-time listing in this market earning? And when we're creating this, we actually break out the revenue earned by bedroom counts. So 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, 5 plus. And then we're comparing that to the average cost of a home by
Got
those
it.
same bedroom counts and essentially getting the yield. So what is the average revenue divided by the average home price? And then we're averaging the yields across those different bedroom categories. So we are sort of doing a one-to-one comparison on bedroom home values by bedroom count compared to how much they're going to earn. And that, and while on average, an average isn't ideal. I think it gives us the best indicator at a high level, at sort of city and market level. Are you going to find uh, good investment opportunities in that city or not? So
I really like
we,
that one.
yeah, so we start. What we did this year is we started with 50 cities, the top 50 cities that came up on our list. We then shared that list with our friends at Revity, who have a database of short-term rental regulations, and where they actually score every city around the country in terms of what is the regulation in that, with a key view on could a new investor come in and invest in that market. So if there's such stringent regulation where even if you wanted to invest in that market,
Right.
you couldn't, then that would have gotten a really high regulation score and sort of dropped them down in our best places to invest list. So we added those regulation scores in, re-indexed the list, and got our sort of top 25 markets. We actually are putting in the regulation scores in this report. And any market, I think, greater than like a 4 or 5 with significant restrictions, in the list, we're actually calling out what are those restrictions in that market that would make it difficult for you to invest in that city.
Well, that sounds to me like a very smart methodology, Jamie Lane. But I love that it's multifaceted, of course. That investability seems so important, even though I know you said like maybe average isn't always the ideal situation, at least from the perspective of understanding what the potential yield could be, it seems super helpful. So would it be fair to say then that our best places to invest report for 2023 is it feels like it's a very pragmatic, measured approach to what, potentially is out there, right, this year, and especially adding in that regulation filter?
Yeah. So that's, and when doing the write-ups, we sort of highlight some of the things that you need to be taking into account when you're thinking about investing in that market. So what is the occupancy? What is the growth in RevPAR? How many listings in that market? How much have listings changed? What are the main demand drivers in that city? So what's bringing
I
guests
love
to your
that.
market? All things important to investigate. The other thing I want to call out is 2023 is going to be a really interesting year in terms of the housing market.
Yes.
And who knows whether or not we're going to go through an overall economic recession in the US in 2023. What we do know is we're already in a housing recession. And what that means is we're more than likely going to see some pretty dynamic shifts in housing prices, and where housing prices are changing. And it's important to know that when housing prices change, uh, and even homes that are sort of operating in the short term rental industry, those house prices are going to be based on comps. And those comps are going to be based on pretty much what single family home buyers are willing and able to pay in that market,
Got
irregardless
it.
of what the earning opportunity is for a short term
Mm,
rental. So, what we're
very
going to
good point.
see is pockets of opportunity evolve over the year. And I think there's going to be lots of emerging buying opportunities as in areas where we see housing prices falling and the revenue still maintaining very high for short-term rental units in those areas.
I love that. Thank you. I was going to make you come back to that, the sort of the affordability and the housing market and where we think we're going with that. Um, Super, super helpful, Jamie Lane, per the usual. So how should our audience and potential investors such as myself use this as a practical guide for potentially guiding their thesis for next year, right? I love what you said, by the way, about looking at factors outside of for demand, right? So for instance, Fairbanks, Alaska, right? What I imagine there are some really great recreational opportunities. I think we have a handful of college towns, spoiler alert. So what are the drivers, right, that might increase like the need for lodging in different areas? That's a great sort of anecdotal thing for folks to look at. But yeah, give me some advice, Jamie Lane. How should I use this guide for my own thesis next year or this year,
Yeah.
whatever year it is?
I want to start with maybe a thought experiment with you, Mariah. Of
Ooh,
I,
ooh.
if if you were just going to buy a home anywhere in the country, uh,
Okay.
and second home for use, and you're like, maybe I could rent it as a short term rental, maybe I could use it on the weekends, uh, and and but and wanted to make an investment, like where would you buy? And with considering
Ooh.
that money was no object.
Oh, well, I like that last part that you added to my search. Okay, okay. Well, so I'm using this. This is not just like a good investment. This is something that I want to potentially get more use out of. So we're in Denver, Colorado. We obviously are outdoorsy people. You can't live in Colorado and not be an outdoorsy person. It's like not allowed. Like they don't let you in the state. I think it's a question they ask when you get to the airport. It's like an informal customs line. Um, so we would want to go somewhere where we could enjoy the outdoors naturally. So from my perspective, we probably want to be in the mountains. If money is literally no object and I want to also take advantage of great food and just, potentially live that life, I'm probably investing somewhere near Aspen, Colorado.
That's and that's I'm great in sort of a few things. One is understanding and how and why you'd want to use that home. Uh,
Right, right.
uh, Aspen is a market with and has actually seen decent occupancy, sort of expanded seasonality in that market. It's actually seen pretty good RevPAR growth. It's a market with pretty stringent regulations. So those operators that are in that market are actually seeing better performance because
Better.
available listings are actually coming down. So that's concentrating the demand in that area in the listings that are sort of licensed and able to continue to operate in that market. But there's sort of one
I
key
knew there
thing
was going to be a but. I knew it. I was like, I thought you were just congratulating me on how smart I am. But carry on, carry on.
is the investability in that market is just terrible. Like the uh, average annual revenue potential is about like $150,000 on average, but average home in that market is gonna and come in just under $3 million. So we've got roughly
Mm-hmm.
a 5% yield there. So when I'm starting my sort of filter of looking at markets, looking at potential homes, I'm starting with at least like a 15% yield there of the
Okay.
revenue divided by the home value. So not necessarily getting through the filter there, but it's also
Yep.
important. This is a key factor for a lot of investors out there is how much do you value your sort of own use of that property, of
Right.
having a spot that's going to be nearby that you can use occasionally, that you can get up there to help fix issues. And uh, and just on the factor of we built out our list and we're looking purely on investability as a on a just pure investment and not
Right.
taking into account any of the intrinsic value that you may derive from that property, and that's where everyone's own value of that property may be different. And I'm not saying that you should probably invest in Aspen. I'm there may be a way that you could make the numbers work and at least cover part, if not all, of your mortgage. Just maybe not get the return that you'd want, um,
Right.
uh, as opposed to going to a market like Fairbanks or up in the White Mountains. North Woodstock came up on the list. Um, a
So
few
lovely
others.
places.
Yeah.
I love so thank you. That was I loved that thought exercise. You bring up a really really good point, right? Which is like again, like why are you doing this and what are you valuing, right? And just so I'm hearing you clearly, our report is very much based on you're valuing the actual financial benefit primarily into getting into these markets. Um, of course, you also bring up good points about proximity, ability to sort of get there to fix problems, all the nine. And I think it's interesting, right? Like our founder has said before, right? Like it is very potentially a not great investment strategy if you are just going for maximum revenue to invest in a place that you just love or you want to go to visit or you want to potentially have a second home in, right? So sometimes those two goals are competing with each other. The other thing that I think that you bring up that really is really interesting, because I was having lunch with a friend the other day and he anecdotally was saying, oh yeah, my friends have this place in Breckenridge, second home. Property manager convinced them like, oh, you're going to make a killing on Airbnb, like let us help you list it. It's going to be a great short-term rental. Managing those types of expectations from the property manager perspective, I think is really important too. So understanding what your customer wants. Of course, they didn't get that like 70%, whatever margin they were expecting to get on their place. They've decided it's not worth it to have strangers there and they can just leave it for their own use. So certainly an important, I think, part of whatever property managers are doing in terms of managing expectations is to dig into data like this as well so that they can help folks understand and level expectations. I always say it's better just like it's when you manage expectations, it's fine. As long as you're saying you're not going to over deliver, usually people are fine with bad news, I would say.
Yeah, and another key thing to sort of keep in mind when you're sort of investing, when you're sort of looking at the projections on what you think a home may earn, and maybe even what the property manager estimates are giving you, or even what our own rentalizer tool is
Right.
pulling back for you, is that we are in an environment where we expect occupancies to fall further. So
Mm,
overall, we're expecting about a 3% decline next year. So when you're looking at a market, and we and MarketMinder show 5 years of history for occupancy, ADR, RevPAR, for all the key metrics. Get comfortable, yes, with what your properties sort of and earned in terms of occupancy ADR over the past year, but also get comfortable with what those occupancy levels were in 2018,
mm,
2019.
love
Because
that.
if we do go into a recession, uh, that could, or even just, and with the supply trends that we're seeing now, with and just supply continuing to outpace demand, we saw that I think it was the 10th
Right.
consecutive month of occupancy declines in the U.S. Uh, so that's a factor. And then the other key factor when looking sort of forward is what do we expect to further happen in terms of home values, but also on the demand side. So I expect
Mm,
2023 is going to be still a year of recovery for international demand. And there's sort of some major urban centers that we expect demand to continue to recover on the backs of sort of the international recovery. We have APAC continually open up, Chinese travelers coming back. There's still
right.
so much tailwinds to some of these large cities. And that overlaps really closely with a lot of the areas where we expect to see falling home values. So we
Got
partner
it.
with Oxford and get their forecast for home values over the next 1 to 5 years. And there's markets like San Francisco, Phoenix, Las Vegas, and markets in California, Nevada, Arizona, Florida, where we all and they expect to see significant declines in home values. So you marry that up with sort of rising occupancies. I think there's
Right.
going to be a lot of emerging opportunities over this next year that maybe aren't showing up today in the data, but will continue to evolve. And while it's going to be so important to have sort of a finger on the pulse of what's happening, and I know, and we're putting out now data every week on all these markets, so updating MarketMinder much more frequently, so
Right.
our customers can stay up to date. And then also, the monthly reviews, the sort of regular monthly videos and podcasts that we do, sort of keeping everyone up to date. I think this year more than ever, it's going to be really important to have your finger on the pulse of sort of what are the trends that are happening and knowing what markets there may be evolving opportunities to invest in.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, it does seem so absolutely more so than ever that like data is your silver bullet for investment strategy, right? Because it is ever evolving, and our tools are staying up to date with all of that. And certainly this concept I'd say of like the riches are in the niches, right? And so if you've got the gumption and the ability, and of course the tools, shameless plug, to get into the data, right? Lots of opportunity, especially in exactly, Jamie, I think what you're saying, right? With these markets that, housing prices are going to fall in, occupancy is still going to stay high. Still lots of demand there. And yes, spoiler alert, it's not going to necessarily be in places like Aspen, Colorado, where that's going to be the case. Um, I'm so excited to dig into all 25 of the places. I think we did. Firstly, I just want to pat ourselves on the back for the write ups because I think we do talk a lot about sort of what is driving demand, what the appeal of these locations are for a traveler, as well as for an investor. Absolutely love, of course, that we've added in, and shout out to Revity. Thank you guys for your help there. Added in an element of regulation because it is, of course, one of the most important things that you should be factoring into your investment thesis. And lots of good opportunities out there for folks. I don't know. I think you summarized it perfectly, Jamie. I think we got to end on this high note. I think we did it. What do you
Yeah, and
think?
I'll give a shout out to Blake Mullen doing all those write ups for us,
Yes.
so digging out all these cities. Shout out to Matt Landau for holding our feet to the
Yes.
fire of getting the regulation scores added into here this year. And then a shout out to all the investors this year. Let us know the
Yes.
market you're looking at and where you're finding opportunities. And if there's any way that we can help, we've got, and maybe spoiler alert, a lot of new tools coming out to help you find and build your own best places to invest report for those larger investors. If you want a demo of our PPD dashboard tool that sort of has and the future of investing in it, and giving us really a peek of what some of the new investability tools we're going to be rolling out are, please reach out, and we'd be happy to walk you through them.
I love that. That was an even better ending. Yes, please let us know where you are investing in 2023, because I know a lot of you are out there taking advantage of this market. All right. Well, happy listening and happy investing, folks.